As we move away from the garden, we enter a world where a richer variety of wildlife thrive. And that includes a multitude of insects. More unique and different bird species make here their home too. However, that doesn't mean we don't see garden visitors from time to time. So come along with me as I discover what a forest has to show. Jackdaws are the most common crow species I see in my local park forest, right next to magpies. They always nest here during the summertime, and as a result, have quite a substantial juvenile population when they're around. Often, they will arrive early in the springtime and then leave once their young have gained the ability to fly. While they are around though, it's a lot of sitting around, sleeping, and being fed by the parents. Once they're old enough, they will then leave to fend for themselves. Jackdaws typically feed on invertebrates, nuts, fruit, and even seeds from garden feeders when they feel like visiting. How fun it is to watch them in this park though, as they go about their days mostly lazying around and bathing in the sunlight. A common bird often seen on woodland walks, you are very likely to come across it anywhere in the country. Wood pigeons. Doing justice to their name, they are found all over woodlands across Ireland and the UK. While wood pigeons typically are a social bird, in the breeding season, the ones where I live can get a bit feisty in trying to secure a mate. This oftentimes leads to the pigeon they're trying to attract flying off, uninterested. This leaves the trying to mate bird having to look for another potential partner. They are a very pretty bird though, and you're almost guaranteed to come across one on your travels in a woodland at any time of the year. Wood pigeons are herbivores and will feed on most plant matter, including grass, leaves, and buds. This also means they feed on other foods such as seeds and grains. They need a lot of these nutrients as they require the energy to both incubate and raise their young. The jackdaws and wood pigeons in these woods often share the same trees, producing young in similar areas as one another. However, they don't bother each other and mostly keep to themselves. I mentioned earlier that the jackdaws will visit my garden, however they're always too nervous to come down and feed while I'm outside, preferring to wait until I'm gone. A forest in summer is often well acquainted with the song of the blackbird. Although loud during the breeding season, it becomes much more mellowed out once summer arrives. Here's a blackbird I caught sunbathing. While this behavior may look worrying, it is perfectly normal, and the bird swiftly moved away once it noticed me. Their call is probably one of the most melodious of the bird melodies. Not many other birds have a song quite like it. The smaller cousin to the blackbird, the song thrush, is also seen this time of year, with a mellowed out song of its own. Once it has finished its quiet trill, it will preen itself for ages, making sure it looks its best, possibly for next year. Never too early to start freshening yourself up. And if you're lucky enough, you may even be able to spot one or both of these birds on the ground, feeding on earthworms, berries, and whatever other food they can get their beaks on. While you may be thinking that we're close to done, we still have much, much more to see. Welcome to Muff Glenn, a forest very close to my heart. I could spend hours here, just listening to the trills and chirps all around me. What is most impressive, though, is the scale of the forest, despite how small it is. I'll let it speak for itself. If it wasn't obvious already, Muff Glenn is one of my favourite forests to visit. Both in summer and the other seasons, it is still a beautiful spot, with much to see. I mentioned earlier that there are many feeding birds here. I think it's about time that we go and see them. The main bird species that visit these feeders are coal tits and great tits. It is always fun to see these birds, constantly moving about and chittering away as they do so. Because of how unpredictable they are in their movement, I'm only ever able to film them while they're feeding. They feed on peanuts and suet fat balls, which is what is given to them in these feeders. However, outside of that, tit birds have an extensive range of other items they will feed on, including insects, spiders, caterpillars, and berries. As is very common for summer, juvenile tits can often be seen feeding at the feeders. It may be hard to tell which ones are juvenile, but the telltale signs are always downy feathers and a lack of coloration that the adults have. Tits are very common forest birds overall, with an estimation by RSPB showing that there are over 2 million great tits and over 760,000 coal tits across mainland UK alone. This commonness is what makes them one of the most seen birds in any forested area. And if you live in or near a forest and have a feeding station set up, you are practically guaranteed to encounter these birds. Simply walking through a forest too can garner their tweets to your ears. Have a listen to their calls. Tits aren't the only species here though. They are commonly joined by chaffinches and robins. Chaffinches are ground feeders and will almost never use standard feeders that are raised in the air. They mainly feed on insects and fruit. However, if there is a ground feeder available, they will happily feed from that. The robins here are a bit stranger. While normally they feed on the ground, sometimes the ones in Muff Glenn will try their chances at the raised feeders. Their diet is much the same as the other birds here, mainly consisting of insects, fruit, and seeds. Here's a video I captured of two robins squaring off against each other. Together, this family of feeding birds helps to bring a smile to my face every time I visit this forest. It's just so fun to think that somewhere this close to my home houses this much wildlife. But we aren't finished yet. Johnston Castle. While it may appear to be just another nature walk, it has a very unusual resident, which makes it quite unique. The Indian peafowl. Well known for their beauty, they are truly a sight to behold. But they aren't native, so how did so many of them end up here? The history is actually really interesting. Peacocks first arrived in Britain during the 14th century when the aristocrat Sir John de Foxley brought a pair back with him during his visit to the Holy Land. They were often kept as status symbols by the wealthy. Over the next few centuries, more and more peacocks were brought over to the UK. A great number of these birds were presents from foreign rulers, and they were often kept in collections on large private estates. After the 17th century, the birds began to spread in popularity beyond royalty, and as a result, they were now being bred in captivity. They ended up becoming a very popular ornamental bird, and people began keeping them in their gardens or on their farms. Peacocks aren't only in the UK though, and are found in many other countries, probably because of similar trade reasons. This is why so many of them can be found in a myriad of areas, including zoos, parks, and estates such as this one. What absolutely gorgeous birds though, a lot bigger than anything we've covered so far. One thing you may know peacocks for are their impressive tail feather displays. Done as a mating dance, males use this tactic to attract females, which are known as peahens. The peahens aren't nearly as colourful as the males, but they still have just as much personality. Because they are all fed by people on the regular, they have become quite used to their presence, and have no fear of getting up close and personal. Here's a peahen that got interested in what I was doing and decided she wanted a closer look. I have a feeling she thought I had food with me. Disappointed, she walks away. Peacocks truly are a delight to see. With their colourful feathers, outgoing personalities, and overall radiant appearance, they make for a beautiful bird to lay your eyes on. Not to mention, they can be seen in a lot of nature parks, simply going about their business. But all things must come to an end. Eventually, we all have to move on. All the colours and sights that a forest gives can be a great tool in connecting us with a world that isn't often seen anymore. But this planet surrounding us all is big and grand, so we have to accept that there's more out there to see. There it waits, yearning for a connection from afar, with wonders of its own making. Let's all see the coast.